What if I told you that one courtside date night, one NBA collab, and one old interview were enough to flip the entire Ace Nicolandria, Nic Olandria, Taylor, Love Island Huda, Love Island Season 7, Love Island, Sierra Love Island, USA, dating show, Nicolandria, Nic and Olandria universe upside down, long after the villa lights went off? Because while some people are still arguing about who should have won Love Island USA Season 7, Nic and Olandria are out here sitting courtside at an NBA game, getting official love from a whole franchise, dancing their way through an after-party, and at the same time, dealing with people twisting Olandria's words from an interview into something completely different. Before we dive in, do me one tiny favor. Tap that subscribe button like you're voting for your favorite Love Island couple. It's free, it helps the channel, and it tells the algorithm you're officially team I'm too invested in this dating show universe. All right, let's unpack what really happened.
There's a reason people can't stop talking about Nic Olandria. On a show like Love Island USA Season 7, couples come and go. You get dramatic recouplings, tearful exits, surprise bombshells. 1 minute, everybody's Team Ace. Then it's Team Taylor. Then Sierra walks in and everything resets. Add Huda to the mix and you've basically got a full-on saga inside one dating show. But somehow, out of all that chaos, Nic and Olandria stuck in people's minds in a different way. Fans didn't just see another pretty couple, they saw a dynamic that felt a bit flipped. Nic has never been afraid to look like the supportive guy. He's that partner who's happy to hype his girl up, carry the bag, hold the phone, take the picture, and stand right behind her while she shines. And Olandria stepped out of the villa and straight into a spotlight that just kept getting brighter. Photo shoots, brand events, interviews, and a fan base that genuinely cares about what she's doing next.
Together, they turned from just another couple from a dating show into a branded duo the internet actually follows. That's how you end up with people still making edits of Nic and Olandria months after Love Island Season 7 ended. That's how you get threads, TikToks, and posts where their names still sit next to Ace, Taylor, Sierra, and Huda, like everyone's part of the same extended universe. But all of that was just the warm-up. Their night with the San Antonio Spurs was the moment where the line between reality TV couple and pop culture fixture really started to blur.
Picture this. You open Instagram or X one random day, and suddenly your timeline is full of Nic and Olandria. But not in a villa, not at a Love Island reunion, not in some tiny influencer event. They're courtside at an NBA game. We're talking VIP treatment, front row seats, cameras catching their reactions, posts going up from the team's official accounts. Not only that, but there's a whole playful collab vibe going on. The Spurs aren't just like, oh hey, a couple from a dating show is here. They're leaning in. They're calling them Nicolandria, making little references, and basically treating them like part of the show that night. Nic's wearing a jersey, there are customized touches, inside jokes and captions, and fan edits popping up almost immediately. Olandria's dressed head to toe in sleek black, given that I didn't come to play, I came to be seen energy. The whole thing doesn't feel like a random date, it feels like a moment. And the internet clocked that.
This wasn't just, oh wow, they got good seats. It was more like, wait, hold on. A Love Island couple is now officially part of an NBA team's content and courtside culture. For a lot of fans, that game was a sign of just how far they've come since the villa. From stepping onto a dating show, not knowing what would happen, to now being tapped into a completely different level of visibility. But the story didn't end when the final buzzer went off. If anything, the real Nic Olandria content started after they left the court.
Later that night, we see another side of them. No bright arena lights, no commentators, no official team cameramen, just Nic, Olandria, their friends, and what looks like a car full of people having an absolutely ridiculous amount of fun. Olandria is behind the wheel, focused but vibing, and Nic is sitting there in full passenger princess energy. He's relaxed, leaning into the music, clearly in his element. The car is full. Everyone's laughing, dancing in their seats, mouthing the lyrics. It's that kind of moment where you can tell the cameras are there, but nobody really cares. They're just enjoying the night. Then there's the after party itself. Crowded room, lights, people shoulder to shoulder, music that's clearly loud, even though you can't hear it in the clips because of copyright. You don't need sound to see what's going on. Nic and Olandria are moving through the space like people who are used to attention now, but still genuinely enjoying it. No stiff posing, no awkward forced energy. Just a group of friends, and a couple at the center of the room who somehow manage to look like they're at work and at play at the same time.
And honestly, that's a big part of why their fan base is so invested. You can't fake that kind of ease for months on end. Either the dynamic works or it doesn't. Here, it looks like it works. Quick pause here. If you've watched this far, you're clearly more committed to Nicolandria lore than some people are to their actual relationships. So do yourself a favor. Hit subscribe before you forget. Think of it as making your situationship official with the channel. No labels, just vibes and notifications. All right, let's talk about the interview that set the internet on fire.
So now we've got Courtside, after party, social media going crazy. But at the same time, there's another storyline bubbling in the background. A while back, Olandria sat down with Angel Reese for an interview. And if you don't follow Angel closely, here's the short version. She's a star athlete with a huge cultural footprint, someone who knows exactly what it's like to go from being just a player to becoming a full-on public figure. When she talks, people listen. When she brings someone onto her platform, it actually means something. So when Angel brought Olandria on, the conversation wasn't some messy gossip session. It was more like, how did you get here? What do you believe in? How do you carry yourself now that everything you do is watched?
Olandria talked about her background, working, studying, trying to build a life before Love Island ever came into the picture. She talked about what it feels like to suddenly go from a normal life to being recognized in public, to having brands and fans and expectations. And of course, she talked about Nic. Not in a he saved me way, not in some overdramatic, scripted fairy tale language, more in the lane of, I have someone in my corner. I have a partner who supports me. I'm comfortable being myself, and he doesn't try to dim that. It was the kind of conversation a lot of people found uplifting. You could take it as a reminder that you don't have to shrink yourself to be in a relationship. You can be ambitious, loud, visible, and still have someone beside you who isn't threatened by that. That's how most people saw it, at first. Then the internet did what the internet does.
Somewhere along the line, someone took a short segment from that interview, pulled it out of its original context, and dropped it into a post or a thread with a completely different tone. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about Olandria having a solid, supportive partner. It was about whether she relies too much on outside validation. People started to say things like, "Isn't this just the bare minimum? Why is she talking like this is something rare? Does she really need someone else's approval this much?" From there, it escalated quickly. Instead of focusing on the full interview, which included her talking about her goals, values, and what she stands for, people chose to zoom in on one part and build a whole narrative out of it.
Suddenly, she wasn't being framed as a confident woman talking about the kind of support she appreciates. She was being framed as someone who supposedly can't stand on her own without another person cheering her on. And here's the irony. If she hadn't mentioned Nic at all, people would probably say she was ignoring him or being ungrateful. But because she did highlight the support she gets from our partner, a section of social media twisted that into a flaw. This is what happens when we treat real people like characters in a story we're writing in our heads.
Instead of seeing the interview as a whole, some viewers decided to narrow everything down to one angle. She must be chasing validation. But that's the thing. We can't talk about someone's mindset based on one quote if we ignore everything else they've said and done.
To really understand whether that criticism is fair or not, you'd have to look at Olandria's record over time, not just one clip. Scroll back through her posts, and you'll notice patterns that have nothing to do with desperation or needing approval from strangers. You'll see someone who talks about being grateful for where she came from and where she is now, shares encouragement for people who feel overlooked or underestimated, boosts small businesses, students, and followers who are trying to get their own lives off the ground, uses her platform to hype other people up, not just herself. That doesn't sound like someone who thinks her value comes from one person or one group of people or one kind of attention. It sounds like someone who knows her worth and happens to appreciate having a partner who sees it too.
Now, does that mean she's perfect? Of course not. No one is. Everyone says things sometimes that don't land the way they meant them. But the difference between an honest moment and a red flag is the pattern, not the snippet. So when someone takes one interview, cuts out a piece, and uses it to declare, she's just obsessed with being validated, they're ignoring all the other moments that tell a much more balanced story. The support she describes from Nic doesn't sound like the foundation of her self-image. It sounds like a bonus, like having a teammate when you already know how to play the game. Which brings us to the real problem here, the expectations of the fandom.
Because, let's be honest, the Love Island fandom is intense. People didn't just watch Love Island USA Season 7, they studied it. They picked sides. They built entire belief systems around couples. You've got people who rode hard for Ace, people who still bring up Taylor in every conversation, people who write long posts defending Cierra, people who will debate Huda's storylines like it's a court case. And then you've got the Nicolandria camp, fans who genuinely see Nic and Olandria as their endgame couple. The problem is, once fans get this invested, they tend to stop seeing these people as, well, people. They turn them into symbols. So every time Nic and Olandria go to a game, it's not, oh, they went out. It's, they're sending a message. Every brand collab becomes proof of who won the post-show life. Every word in an interview becomes a code for how they feel about someone else from the cast. In that kind of atmosphere, no sentence is just a sentence. No compliment is just a compliment. No mention of support is just, I'm glad my partner has my back. Everything becomes ammo for somebody's argument.
That's why this interview got so heated. Not because Olandria said something outrageously terrible, but because people were already primed to read into everything she says. If you want her to be the symbol of independent, doesn't need anyone ever, then any mention of her partner makes you uncomfortable. If you want her to be the symbol of perfect, drama-free relationship, then any sign of vulnerability makes you nervous. But real people don't fit into those boxes. They're allowed to say, yeah, I know my value, and also I really appreciate that my partner sees it too, without that turning into a scandal. Quick breather again. If you're still watching at this point, you're basically in too deep to pretend you're casually scrolling. So go ahead and subscribe before the algorithm forgets you are here. Think of it as putting your name down on the guest list for every future episode in the Nic and Olandria universe. Now, let's zoom out one more time and connect the Spurs night, the interview, and the fandom reaction.
When you step back and look at everything side by side, a clearer picture appears. On one side, you've got that Spurs game, official posts, courtside energy, inside jokes and collab vibes, a couple who clearly know how to work a camera, but also look like they're having fun for real. On the other side, you've got an interview where Olandria talks about where she came from, how strange and intense the spotlight can feel,
how important it is to stay grounded, how having a supportive partner helps her handle everything. Both sides show the same core thing. Two people who are navigating a life that got a lot louder, a lot faster than they probably expected. The drama didn't come from them. It came from what people decided to project onto them. Some viewers saw the Spurs night and thought, wow, they're actually building something beyond the show. This is big. Others saw the chopped-up interview clip and thought, see, this matches the story I already decided I believe. And that's where we need to be honest with ourselves as fans. Sometimes we're not really analyzing the people on screen. We're just looking for proof of whatever story we've already written in our heads. For some, Nicole and Olandria will always be the success story from Love Island USA Season 7. The couple that outgrew the villa, joined a bigger world, and stayed solid through it. For others, they'll always be a target. They're overrated, they're performing, they're chasing validation. But when you peel away the noise, what you actually see looks simple. A woman who's proud of who she is, navigating a fast-moving life. A man who seems completely fine with cheering loud for her, even when she's the one in the spotlight. Two people showing up courtside, at parties, in interviews, in ways that match the energy they had when we first met them. But on a much bigger stage now.
So what do we do with all of this? You could walk away from this story saying, wow, fandoms really can twist literally anything. Or you could walk away saying, it's actually kind of inspiring to see a couple from a dating show move like this in the real world. For me, the most interesting part isn't the thread that tried to drag Olandria over one quote. It's the way she keeps showing up. Still working, still connecting, still talking about goals, values, and the people she wants to help. Still standing next to Nic, and still letting Nic stand next to her without shrinking. That's not the energy of someone built entirely on external validation. That's the energy of someone who wants a partner, not a sponsor. A teammate, not a supervisor. So now I want to know what you think.
Do you feel like that interview got blown way out of proportion? Do you think fans are reading too much into everything Nic and Olandria say and do after Love Island Season 7? Or do you think there is a valid conversation to be had about how people talk about support and partnership in the public eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments, agree, disagree, somewhere in between. Just keep it respectful. We're talking about real people here, even if their lives sometimes feel like a show. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you still haven't subscribed, honestly, that's impressive commitment with zero paperwork. Go ahead and hit subscribe so the channel doesn't stay the situationship you never define. Turn on the bell too if you want to be the first to know when the next episode in the Nicolandria universe drops. Thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and remember, not every storyline the internet writes is actually true.